Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy to see you today. Just want to fix this a little bit. So I have another true crime ASMR video for you. Today's video is a recommended case by Skeleton ASMR. We'll be discussing this case over coffee. So, we will be talking about Donald Harvey today, who was an American serial killer who claimed to killing 87 people. Although official estimates have him between 37 and 57 victims. He was able to do this all during his time as a hospital orderly. So, today's video will be interesting to say the least. I will be adding this video, as always, to my True Crime ASMR playlist. This is where you can find past and future videos in this series. So, as always, I will begin our video with early life and background, and then move to the crimes and events that follow. If you enjoy content like this in an ASMR format, I highly suggest hitting the like and subscribe buttons below, so more content like this is suggested to you in your feed. So, let us begin. Donald Harvey was born on April 15th, 1952. He would be the oldest of 3 children and would live a really troubled childhood in Boonville, Kentucky. His parents were struggling tobacco farmers whose relationship together was poor, yet their relationship with their children was always described as loving and nurturing. And unfortunately, when Donald was only 6 months old, his father would fall asleep while holding him and drop him. His parents claimed that Harvey did not appear to be seriously injured, but he would have a soft spot on his head from the incident that would never go away. He would have another incident when he fell from the running board of his uncle's truck. So a lot of thumping on his noggin. Harvey's parents and family were active members in their local Baptist church. It would later be disclosed by Donald's sister that he had been molested from 5 years old to 18. His Uncle Wayne sexually abused him whenever Harvey would visit his grandmother's house. This would include assisting in masturbation and oral sex. He was also paid to allow a neighbor of his, Dan Thomas, to sexually abuse him as well. In school, Harvey was described as the teacher's pet and got good grades, but was very quiet and antisocial. And in his middle school years, he was really bullied. In 1968, Harvey would enter 9th grade and would claim dropping out due to boredom. he would get a correspondence school GED that same year. Harvey would come home after a call from his mother to come home and care for his ailing grandfather. During his grandfather's stay at Marymount Hospital, he would quickly become popular and well-liked by the staff, so they would end up offering him a job there. It would be at Marymount Hospital that his reign of terror would begin. This reign of terror would last nearly 20 years. During this time, he would have many relationships with other men, one specifically named James Beluso. He would unfortunately have more unfortunate events, such as being raped by a roommate named Randy White. All of his murders that he would partake in would be on the job. Harvey's first confirmed murder is to have allegedly happened on May 31st, 1970. So 2 years after 9th grade. So he was probably around like 18. His first victim was a 88-year-old man named Logan Evans. Harvey smothered him with a pillow and a plastic bag in a rage at Evans for rubbing feces in his face. Harvey would also accidentally kill another man named James Tyree when he allegedly gave him the wrong catheter, which is a terrible way to die, so I don't think you could do that accidentally. And I'd like to add, back in the day, healthcare was very different. You did not have, people died mysteriously all the time, and things were not kept as organized as they are now. Everything was kept on paper, documentation was very different, so mistakes like these, which are not, in his case it was not a mistake, you can't mistake that, but they happened all the time, and people weren't really staying within their scope either. You had nurses and aides interchangeably doing things that should have been specifically for someone who had not only the experience but the education behind it. Back then it was more anyone could really do anything, and like my father was in healthcare and he was drawing blood as an aide and helping with blood tests and stuff like that, which now you could draw blood, but there's just different scopes. And putting in a catheter, which my dad did back in the day too, is now strictly for the nurse to do. So back to Donald. He had given the wrong size catheter, and he held the patient down until he vomited blood and died. Donald would recall that some murders were out of mercy. The first alleged mercy killing was a 42-year-old Elizabeth Wyatt, who he killed by cutting off her oxygen supply. Supposedly, she had told him she wanted to die, and even heard her praying for death. Donald would begin a relationship with another man named Vernon Midden, who he alleges taught him about how human bodies react to certain stimuli. So Midden was also supposedly an occultist. Their relationship would soon begin to go sour. This would cause Harvey to become very depressed and begin fantasizing about torturing Midden. On March 31st, 1971, Harvey would be arrested for a burglary he committed while drunk. Under interrogation, Harvey would actually ramble drunkenly about his murders, so he told authorities and confessed to them about his past murders. And the cops would peg this as a drunken slur and charge Harvey with petty theft. So he pretty much paid a fine and then went home. Harvey had many bouts of depression. He was suffering with depression his whole life. And after this arrest, he would become depressed again and would enter a medical center in Lexington, Kentucky, where he would stay there for several months before leaving and would return again several weeks later. He would receive extensive therapy there after a failed suicide attempt and would be released again. Harvey's list of crimes would not end there, as he would start an arson fire that's how he was planning to commit suicide this time, and would only be charged a $50 fine. After this, he would enlist in the U.S. Air Force after being discharged less than a year later due to several suicide attempts. After being discharged, he would go back to a medical center, which was the VA's medical center. He would stay there for several months before leaving and then return again several weeks later. Just a repeat with going in and out of a mental hospital for him. Harvey would eventually find another job as a nurse's aide at Cardinal Hill Hospital in Lexington. Harvey was able to manage both jobs until he took up another job as a telephone operator in August of 1974. He was known for having many jobs, so while having not only 2 jobs, he would pick up a third as a clerk at St. Luke's Hospital. Harvey would move back to Ohio in September of 1975, and leaving all of those jobs behind, and secured a job at the Cincinnati VA Medical Hospital. And this is where Harvey began to feel comfortable again at this job, and his murders would resume. Harvey, during this time, had several relationships, including one in which he attempted to kill his lover, Doug Hill. He attempted to kill him with arsenic. He also poisoned several of his neighbors and family members of acquaintances, several of whom died. Harvey was finally captured after an extensive investigation, and authorities would search his apartment and would find a lot of evidence. He would eventually be found guilty of 28 counts of murder and sentenced to 28 consecutive life sentences at the Toledo Correctional Institution. On March 28th, 2017, Harvey was found savagely beaten and was declared dead 2 days later. Harvey primarily targeted patients at the hospitals he worked at, yet he did kill other victims, usually people who made him paranoid or crossed him in some way. He usually killed them either by smothering them with a pillow or plastic bag, setting up their deaths to look like accidents, such as giving them faulty medical equipment, overdosing them on medication, and using various poisons, cyanide, arsenic, which he would inject through medical equipment or foods and drinks. After keeping his crimes hidden for 17 years, Harvey slipped in March 1987. An autopsy on John Powell, who had died abruptly after spending several months on life support following a motorcycle accident, revealed large amounts of cyanide in his system. Harvey became a person of interest. When investigators learned he had been forced to resign from the Cincinnati VA hospital after he was caught stealing body parts for occult rituals. At the time, most hospitals did not really watch orderlies or aides closely as doctors or nurses. When they brought Harvey in for questioning, he confessed to Powell's murder, claiming he had euthanized him with cyanide. Pat Minarson, who was then an anchor at Cincinnati Station, found it unlikely that someone who had spent almost 2 decades caring for patients could suddenly kill one without having killed before. During his report on the night of Harvey's arrest, Minarson asked on air if there had been any other deaths. It was soon revealed that several nurses at the hospital had raised concerns with administrators upon noticing a spike in deaths while Harvey was employed there. But administration ordered them to keep quiet, not wanting the chance that he would be acquitted. The nurses contacted Minarson and told him that there was evidence Harvey killed at least 10 more people. Over the next several months, Minarson investigated the suspicious deaths, and he collected enough evidence to air a half-hour special that would detail evidence that linked Harvey to at least 24 murders in a 4-year period. Harvey had been able to stay under the radar, in part because he worked in an area where patients were not expected to survive. When Harvey's court-appointed lawyer, Bill Whalen, was briefed in advance about Minarson's findings, he immediately asked Harvey if he had killed anyone else. Harvey replied that by his estimate, he had killed as many as 70 people. Whalen knew that if prosecutors could link Harvey to more than one murder, Ohio law allowed them to seek the death penalty. In an attempt to save his client's life, Whalen offered prosecutors a plea bargain if the death penalty was taken off the table. Harvey would accept a sentence of life without parole and confess to all of his murders. The prosecutors would agree. In a marathon session with prosecutors, Harvey admitted to killing 24 people. The media dubbed Donald Harvey the Angel of Death on August 18th, 1987. On this day, headlines would be lined with the 35-year-old nurse's aide, Donald Harvey, pled guilty to 24 counts of murder, 4 counts of attempted murder, and 1 count of felonious assault. 4 days later, he would plead guilty to 25 murders and was subsequently sentenced to 4 consecutive 20 years to life sentences. Harvey was also fined $270,000. On September 7th, 1987, in Kentucky, Harvey confessed to committing 12 additional murders while employed at Marymount Hospital. So, during this trial, he would confess to a set of murders, and then he would go on for so long, confess to more murders. And the media and the whole community were just in shock that Harvey had just sprinkled his death juices in so many locations without being identified sooner. 20 years of this. So in November, he pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 8 life terms plus 20 years. He pled guilty a few months later for the 3 other deaths outside of the hospital, from which he received 3 life sentences plus 3 terms of 7 to 25 years. In total, Harvey was convicted of 37 murders. Harvey said that for the most part, his killings were out of mercy. I felt what I was doing was right. I was putting people out of their misery. I hope if I'm ever sick and full of tubes or on a respirator, someone will come and end it, he once reported. Harvey said the killings gave him a sense of satisfaction and almost happiness. The murders gave Harvey some sense of power and control in a life that he had much difficulty navigating. In court, Harvey would laugh when prosecutors showed the names of his victims on a board for the jury. Harvey was admitted to the Ohio prison system on October 26, 1987. So, now we'll break down the confirmed murders by Donald Harvey. I'll be going by year and what occurred. I just want to make sure that the names that are confirmed are heard. So, in 1970, on May 31st, he murdered Logan Evans and James Tyree. Logan Evans was 88 years old and was smothered with a pillow and plastic bag. James Tyree, 69, was an alleged accidental murder, giving him the wrong catheter, causing him to vomit blood and die. Which, for this to occur, if you are a gentleman or a woman, I think you can agree that having a catheter that went up your urethra that was so wrong sized that it would make you vomit blood and die, that's not an accident. But anyway, on June 22nd, Elizabeth Wyatt, 42 years old, he cut off her oxygen supply. July 10th, Eugene McQueen, 43, he turned over onto his back, causing him to drown in his own fluids. July 12th, Harvey Williams, 82 years old, claimed to be accidental. He gave him a faulty oxygen tank, causing him to go into cardiac arrest. July 24th through 28th, Ben Gilbert, 81, first premeditated murder. He killed him for knocking him out with a urinal, which I couldn't even imagine a patient knocking me out with a urinal, first of all, but do I think of killing them? No. So, Harvey would then give Ben a too large catheter, and he would put a straightened coat hanger through it and into his urethra. This would puncture Gilbert's bladder and bowel, and he went into instant shock and a coma, where he died 4 days later. Oh gosh. So, August 15th, Maud Nichols. He gave her a faulty oxygen tank, and Maud was not able to breathe. August 30th, William Bowling, 58. He turned off his oxygen tank, causing a fatal heart attack. November 4th, Viola Reed Wyron, 63. He attempted to kill her by smothering her with a pillow and a plastic bag, but was interrupted. He later killed her by giving her a faulty oxygen tank. December 7th, Margaret Harrison, 91. He would overdose her on Demerol, codeine, and morphine. 1971, January 9th, Sam Carroll, 80 years old, was given a faulty oxygen tank. Maggie Rollins, smothered with a pillow and a plastic bag between it and her face. Silas Butner, 62, was given a faulty oxygen tank. John V. Combs, 68 years old, he attempted to smother him with a plastic bag, but instead gave him a faulty oxygen tank. And it's kind of interesting to see the dates are like days apart, and then it'll stop for 2 months, then start, then stop. And it's just interesting that he has like this pattern consistently. I'll do it for a couple days and stop, do it for a couple days and stop. And it's just so heartbreaking that these people were victim to that. So, Milton Bryant, 90 years old, he overdosed him on morphine. Next, we would go to 1980. Doug Hill, who was one of his lovers, he attempted to poison him with arsenic. He survived. Carl Howler, one of his lovers, he poisoned him repeatedly with arsenic, and he also survived. Diane, which was Howler's girlfriend, but like a side piece. That's who she was. Harvey, he gave her hepatitis C and poisoned her with acrylic acid and attempted to give her AIDS. Luckily, Diane survived. In 1983, April 10th, Helen Metzger, 63, killed for an argument. She was given arsenic after a tracheotomy, causing paralysis and hemorrhaging. Next, it would be the Metzger family. He attempted to poison alongside Helen, but failed. So I'm assuming Helen was in like critical care, and Harvey comes in trying to comfort her family after he just tried to kill her, and gives them coffee with poison. Next, we have Henry Howler. This is Carl, his ex-lover. This is his father. He poisoned him with arsenic, which caused a stroke and kidney failure. Next would be Howard Vedder, which was Carl's brother-in-law. This is alleged to be accidental. Howard had drank alcohol Harvey had poisoned and died from a heart attack. Imagine you break up with somebody and they just poison and kill your whole family. Wild. So, 1984, September 19th, Hiram Prophet, he overdosed him on heparin. November 9th, James Peluso, 65 years old, one of his ex-lovers. He poisoned him with arsenic, causing death from cardiac problems. March 18th through the 25th, Edward Wilson, who was a neighbor who was really just trying to be a homie for Carl and protect him. Harvey poisoned him with arsenic and he died 5 days later. 1986, April 8th, Nathaniel J. Watson, 65. He smothered him with a wet plastic garbage bag liner, unsuccessfully attempted several times prior. April 12th, Leon Nelson, who was 64. He was smothered with a wet plastic garbage bag liner. April 19th, Virgil Weddle, 81, poisoned with rat poisoning in his pudding, causing a fatal heart attack. April 20th through 23rd, Lawrence Bernston. He was poisoned repeatedly with rat poison, and he died 3 days later. May 2nd, Doris Nally, 65, poisoned with cyanide in her apple juice. During May through June of that year, Willie Johnson, he attempted to poison him with arsenic repeatedly. He survived. June 20th, Edward Shrebesis, 63, poisoned with arsenic in his soup. Next we have Robert Crockett, 80, who was poisoned with cyanide in his IV. July 7th, Donald Barney, 61, he was fed cyanide through a feeding tube and injected it into his buttocks. July 25th, James T. Woods, 65, poisoned with cyanide through his gastric tube. August 16th, Ernest C. Frey, 85, poisoned with arsenic through his gastric tube. August 29th, Milton Cantor, poisoned with cyanide through his nasal tube. September 17th, Roger Evans, 74, poisoned with cyanide. September 20th, Clayton Kendrick, poisoned with cyanide. He would also inject the cyanide into Claiborne's testicles. October 29th, Albert Buhyman, 69, poisoned with cyanide dissolved in his cup of water. October 30th, William Collins, 85, poisoned with cyanide dissolved in his orange juice. November 4th, Henry Cody, 78, poisoned with cyanide. November 22nd, Mose Thompson, 65, again poisoned with cyanide. This would be his go-to method of kill, is poisoning these people with cyanide. This would carry on for Otis Day, who was 72, Cleo Fish, 67, Harold White, and John Oldendick, who survived, Leo Parker, who was 47, Margaret Guckrow, who was 80, Stella Lemon, who was 76, Joseph M. Pike, who was 68, Hilda Leitz and John W. Powell. Hilda Leitz was poisoned with detachol, and John W. Powell was poisoned again with cyanide. There are about 4 that are unspecified. We know that he was only officially convicted of 37 murders, but as time has gone on, they have used medical records to confirm more murders. It is claimed that Harvey has had up to 87 murders. On March 28th, 2017, authorities would find Harvey badly beaten in his cell. He would die soon after in the hospital on March 30th, 2017. On May 3rd, 2019, fellow inmate James Elliott was charged with aggravated murder and other charges related to the death of Donald Harvey. In September 2019, he was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison after pleading guilty to killing Harvey. The sentence was originally ordered to run consecutively to his other sentences, but was later changed to run concurrently. Elliott would have become eligible for parole in 2046 when he would have been 71 years old. As reported by the News Journal, James Elliott spent at least 1 week planning the attack. During an interview with the assistant county prosecutor, Drew Wood, Elliott said he wanted to kill a fellow inmate to draw attention to a number of grievances he had with prison guards and administrators. However, he chose Donald Harvey for a specific reason. In a written statement, he explained, "I guess a part of me saw this as an opportunity to finally do something constructive for my neighbors by way of closure and peace of mind, and in turn, balance the karmic scales in my favor." James would initially deny attacking Donald Harvey. However, he later admitted entering Donald's cell with a shank with the intention of stabbing the man to death. The News Journal reports Elliott dropped the shank and began beating Harvey when Harvey started to scream. Harvey's cause of death was severe head trauma, which included multiple fractures and a traumatic brain injury. After his sentencing, James would disclose more on his actions in a letter to the News Journal stating, "Hopefully everyone from our area will take some solace in the fact that one of their own gave Harvey the punishment that he should have gotten from the courts." So, that is today's video. We'll end today's video as we do all of my true crime videos, which is with my final thoughts. This man was truly an angel of death. And I know I shouldn't say this probably, but I don't. It's what I think. I do believe Donald Harvey deserved to get his ass beat. Do I believe that he should have been beaten to the point of almost to dying? All of his patients died very long, drawn-out deaths. Being killed by poison, it takes a while. And a lot of these people were in his care. In healthcare, you're taking an oath to protect life. You're there to protect and increase the quality of life of those around you and the sick that need it most. You are there for support, and you are there to give TLC and love. And this was not a place that Donald should be. He had nothing but anger to offer. I think this is another story of a battered man who he was failed by our mental health systems at the time. Unfortunately, during this time, mental health, especially in the male population, was not a high priority, and it always should be for anyone. And they failed him. I'm not saying that they didn't, but who knows if this man would have followed through with the needed interventions, let alone keep up with the therapy sessions needed and the care and medications that he would need to keep up with. We can always say, like, blame healthcare and blame this and blame that, but at the end of the day, it really is up to this person to take care of themselves and use the initiative to get the right help. I just think he had so much anger from his childhood and blamed everyone else. Like, I know the background of someone like this tells us, I hate these months in New York. I'm telling you, so many flies. Before every video, I don't know where they're coming from. I'm a very clean person. I scrub my floors, I'm scrubbing the walls, and they still appear because it's getting a little bit cooler. And I live in farm country, so you can imagine, I hope so. But I know that the background tells us like a motive, and yes, it's awful, but it wasn't any of these victims' fault that Harvey wasn't getting the right help for himself. It's not their fault those men hurt him. It's not their fault that his parents did not give him the love and attention that he needed. Unfortunately, these people paid the price for the anger, and for him to kill these people and do it so personally, he's seeing them in pain, watching them die from when he initiated the crime to when the life is gone. He's seeing their families, he's seeing all of this right in front of him, and that's why I don't have pity for him, because there's obviously, clearly, something wrong, and he is where he needs to be. Even if he was not killed in prison, I think with him, I think the death penalty would have been a smarter choice. Some people, I think, they need time to sit and think about their actions, but with him, I don't think time would do anything, because he had 20 years of doing firsthand watching his victims die in terrible circumstances and caring for them after. I just don't think time would do anything for him. I think he was too damaged by this point mentally, and I just don't think time would do anything. Although the death penalty is such an interesting thing to really speak of, because I'm sure being in prison is terrible, and people find out why you're there, and you have all these people that are very scary people to be around that have access to you. So I don't know, and I'm glad I'm not the one that makes those decisions, because it's hard to really, sometimes I think death is I think it's too quick, and they need to suffer by being confined and being stuck in those situations. I don't know, but that's another conversation that maybe we will have, probably not, because it's extremely controversial and I don't want to upset anybody. So now that I've probably said too much, as always, thank you so much to Skeleton ASMR for recommending this video. You never fail to bring me a interesting and informative case that I haven't heard of before. So thank you so much for recommending this topic. If you have any cases that you want to learn about or would like to recommend to me for our next week's topic, please let me know. Next week, or possibly this week, depending on timing, we will be doing another recommended video by Miss Carried Away. She is from New York, like myself, and she recommended the Buffalo Bike Path Rapist and Indoor Killer, which is interchangeably used for him. So we will be doing that case. This week we will have a ACOTAR series upload. I do apologize for being behind. I had some family emergency that I had to take care of on the day that I usually film. So that will be up this week. And yeah, so that is our kind of agenda for the week and next week. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. Hope you found it relaxing, and I will see you next time. I will be adding this video to my True Crime ASMR series playlist, as always, and that is where you can find future and past videos in this series. We're getting quite up there now. I think I'm up to 20 videos now, which is exciting. My channel will be having a 2-year anniversary soon as well. So very exciting stuff, and a lot of new videos and concepts for the future. So before I ramble too much more, thank you so much for stopping by, and spooky dreams.